She was the daughter I never had. Funny how the person you trust most is the one who can destroy you completely. My son met her at a charity event. Mom, she's different. She cares about family. And she did care. She came to every Sunday dinner, helped me clean after my husband's funeral, held my hand during my grief. So when she said, "Mom, I need you to sign this before the wedding. It's a gift from you to us." A blessing, I believed her. My lawyer friend didn't. "This isn't a gift," she whispered. "This is a theft, disguised as love." My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 64 years old, and I live in a comfortable 3-bedroom house in Portland, Oregon. The house my husband Thomas and I bought 35 years ago when we were young and full of dreams. Thomas passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. The aggressive kind that doesn't give you time to prepare, doesn't give you time to say all the things you wanted to say. One day he was complaining about back pain, and 6 months later, I was standing at his grave, wondering how I was supposed to live the rest of my life without him. Our son, Daniel, was devastated. He's our only child. We tried for years to have more children, but it never happened. So Daniel became everything to us. Our hopes, our dreams, our entire future wrapped up in one person. After Thomas died, Daniel became distant. Not in a cruel way, but in that way adult children do when they're dealing with their own grief and don't know how to handle their parents' grief at the same time. He'd call once a week, visit once a month, but there was this wall between us that hadn't been there before. I understood. Grief does strange things to people. It makes you pull away from the very people who could help you heal. And then, about 8 months after Thomas died, Daniel called me with excitement in his voice that I hadn't heard in years. "Mom, I met someone really special. Her name is Olivia, and I think she might be the one." My heart swelled. Not just because my son had found someone, but because I heard hope in his voice again. Joy. Life. "I want you to meet her," he continued. "This Sunday. I'm bringing her to dinner." That Sunday, I cooked Thomas's favorite meal. Pot roast with roasted vegetables, homemade rolls, and apple pie for dessert. I set the table with our good china, the plates we only used for special occasions. When the doorbell rang, my hands were shaking. I opened the door and there she was, Olivia Martinez. She was beautiful in that natural, effortless way. Long dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, warm brown eyes, a smile that seemed to light up her entire face. She was wearing a simple blue dress and holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, her voice soft and genuine. "Daniel has told me so much about you." "Thank you for having me." But it was what she did next that broke through all my defenses. She handed me the sunflowers and said, "Daniel told me these were your husband's favorite. I thought you might like to have some in the house." My eyes filled with tears. Sunflowers were Thomas's favorite. He planted them in our garden every spring, said they reminded him to always turn toward the light. "How did you—" I started, but my voice cracked. "I asked Daniel to tell me about his father," Olivia said gently. "I wanted to know about the man who raised such an incredible son." In that moment, standing in my doorway with sunflowers in my hands and tears in my eyes, I knew I was going to love this woman. Dinner was perfect. Not because the food was perfect, but because for the first time since Thomas died, our house felt full again. Olivia asked questions about the photos on our walls, laughed at the stories I told about Daniel as a child, and talked about her own family with such warmth and respect. "My parents immigrated from Mexico when I was 5, she explained. "They worked so hard to give me opportunities they never had. My father was a carpenter, my mother cleaned houses. They taught me that family is everything, that you take care of the people you love no matter what." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "They raised you right." After dinner, Olivia insisted on helping with the dishes. We stood side by side at the sink, her washing, me drying, just like Thomas and I used to do. "Mrs. Hayes," she said quietly, "I want you to know something. I love your son very much, and I promise you, I will take care of him. I will be the wife he deserves." Call me Margaret, I said, pulling her into a hug, and welcome to the family. Over the next few months, Olivia became a constant presence in my life. She didn't just visit when Daniel visited. She came by herself, bringing groceries, helping me with household tasks I was struggling to manage alone, sitting with me on the porch, drinking tea and talking about everything and nothing. She learned to make Thomas's favorite meals from me. I taught her his recipe for chili, the one he'd perfected over 20 years. She'd write everything down in a little notebook, asking questions, wanting to get every detail right. I want to keep his memory alive, she told me once, tears in her eyes. I never got to meet him, but through you and Daniel, I feel like I know him. On what would have been Thomas's 66th birthday, Olivia showed up at my door with a small cake and a potted sunflower. I thought we could celebrate him together, she said. We sat in the garden, eating cake and sharing stories. She listened as I talked about Thomas, about our life together, about the hole his death had left in my world. She didn't try to fix it or tell me it would get better. She just listened and held my hand. That's when I realized something. I'd been so focused on being strong after Thomas died, on not burdening Daniel with my grief, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone care for me. Olivia brought that back. 6 months after they started dating, Daniel proposed. He did it at our house in the garden where Thomas used to plant his sunflowers. Olivia called me immediately afterward, crying happy tears. He said, "Yes, Margaret. We're getting married?" "I'm so happy for you both," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. The wedding planning started immediately. Olivia asked me to help her with everything. We went dress shopping together, tasted cakes, looked at flowers. She valued my opinion, made me feel needed in a way I hadn't felt since Thomas died. "You're like the mother I wish I'd had," she told me once while we were looking at wedding venues. My own mother? She's not very involved in my life, too busy with her own things. But you, Margaret, you make me feel loved. Those words filled my heart. After losing Thomas, after feeling like I'd lost my purpose, Olivia made me feel valuable again, needed, important. But I want you to understand something. This isn't just a story about how someone fooled me. It's a story about how good people can be manipulated by someone who understands exactly which emotional buttons to push. Because 3 weeks before the wedding, everything changed, but I didn't know any of this yet. I was still living in the beautiful lie Olivia had constructed. A lie so perfect, so complete, that I never saw the trap closing around me. Not until the day she asked me to sign the document. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays were when Olivia and I had started our tradition of having tea together. She'd come over around 3, and we'd sit in the sunroom, drinking chamomile tea and talking about the wedding. The wedding was 3 weeks away. The invitations were sent, the venue was booked, the dress was altered and hanging in my spare bedroom. Daniel was glowing with happiness, and I was starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, life could be beautiful again. Olivia arrived right on time, but something was different. She seemed nervous, distracted. She kept checking her phone, biting her lower lip, fidgeting with her hair. "Is everything okay?" I asked as I poured the tea. Yes, everything's fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Actually, Margaret, there's something I need to talk to you about. Something important." My stomach tightened slightly. "Of course. What is it?" She pulled a folder out of her bag. A thick, official-looking folder with what appeared to be legal documents inside. "The wedding venue," she started, setting the folder on the table between us. "They have these new requirements. For liability purposes, they need all immediate family members to sign a document acknowledging the terms of the venue rental." She slid the folder toward me and opened it, revealing a dense document filled with legal language, columns of text in small font, sections marked with red tabs where signatures were required. "It's just a formality," she continued, her voice taking on a slightly rehearsed quality that I didn't recognize. "The venue's insurance company requires it. Something about if anyone gets hurt during the event, they need proof that family members were aware of the venue's policies." I looked down at the document. It was titled, Family Gift and Property Agreement. Wait, I thought you said this was about the venue's liability insurance, I said slowly. Olivia laughed, but it sounded forced. Yes, that's what it is. The legal title is just, you know how lawyers are. They use complicated language for simple things. The venue's lawyer drafted this. Something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. But my instincts, the ones I'd learned to trust over 64 years of life, were whispering that something wasn't right. Can I read through it first? I asked. Of course, Olivia said, pushing a pen toward me. But Margaret, we're kind of on a deadline. The venue needs this signed by Thursday, or they're threatening to cancel our booking. And you know how hard it was to get this date. I did know. Olivia had spent weeks finding the perfect venue, and this particular one had only had one available date in the entire spring season. It'll just take me a few minutes to read through, I said, pulling the document closer. Olivia's smile tightened slightly. Of course. But honestly, it's really just standard legal jargon. Daniel already signed his copy this morning. That made me pause. Daniel signed this? Yes, at the venue. They had him sign when we went to make the final payment. Why would Daniel sign a document without mentioning it to me? We'd talked on the phone just that morning, and he hadn't said anything about signing papers. I started reading. The first page was indeed full of legal language about liability and insurance. But as I flipped to the second page, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The undersigned party hereby transfers ownership and title of the property located at... The address listed was my house. My home, Olivia, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. This says I'm transferring ownership of my house. No, she said quickly, leaning forward. That's just the legal language for listing your address. For insurance purposes, they need to know where all family members live in case of emergency contact. But I kept reading, and the more I read, the worse it got. As a wedding gift to the bride and groom, effective immediately upon signing, all assets, properties, and financial accounts listed in Appendix A shall be transferred. The original owner retains right of residence for a period not to exceed 90 days. This wasn't a venue liability form. This was a property transfer agreement. This was a document that, if I signed it, would give Olivia and Daniel ownership of my house, my savings accounts, my late husband's life insurance policy, everything I owned, and I would have 90 days to move out of my own home. Olivia, I said, my hands starting to shake. This document isn't about the wedding venue. This is a property transfer. Her face changed. Just for a second, the warm, loving expression I'd come to know slipped, and I saw something else underneath. Something cold and calculating. But then the mask was back, and she was reaching across the table, taking my hands in hers. Margaret, you're misreading it. I promise you, this is just about the venue. The language is confusing, I know, but the venue's lawyer assured us it's standard. Then why does it list my house address as being transferred? It's not being transferred, it's being listed. For contact purposes. But even as she said it, I could see in her eyes that she knew I wasn't buying it anymore. I think I need to have my own lawyer look at this before I sign anything, I said. Closing the folder, Olivia's expression hardened. Margaret, we don't have time for that. The venue needs this by Thursday. That's 2 days. If we don't get this signed, we lose our date, we lose our deposit, we lose everything. Then they'll have to wait. I'm not signing a legal document I don't understand. You do understand it, she snapped, and for the first time I heard anger in her voice. Real anger. You're just being difficult. You're just trying to ruin this wedding because you can't stand the thought of Daniel having someone else in his life besides you. I stared at her, shocked. That's not true. You know that's not true, do I? She stood up abruptly, grabbing the folder. You know what, Margaret? Fine, don't sign it. But when Daniel and I lose our wedding venue, when our perfect day is ruined, I'll make sure he knows exactly why. She stormed toward the door, then turned back. I thought you were different, she said. And now there were tears in her eyes. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. I thought you actually cared about us, about me. But you're just like everyone else. Selfish. Only thinking about yourself. And then she was gone, leaving me sitting in my sunroom, surrounded by the remains of our tea, wondering what the hell had just happened. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of what had just occurred. The woman who had just walked out of my house wasn't the Olivia I thought I knew. She was someone else entirely, and I was starting to realize that maybe I'd never known her at all. But the real nightmare was just beginning. I did something I should have done the moment Olivia left. I called my friend Patricia. Patricia Chen had been my friend for over 20 years. We'd met at a community center class, bonded over our shared love of mystery novels, and stayed close through all of life's ups and downs. She'd been there when Daniel was born, when Thomas was diagnosed, when Thomas died. But the most important thing about Patricia, at least in this moment, was that she was a retired real estate attorney. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret? What's wrong? You sound upset. I told her everything. The document, Olivia's visit, the strange language about property transfer, Olivia's angry reaction when I refused to sign." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Margaret," Patricia finally said, her voice very serious, "do you still have that document?" "No, Olivia took it with her when she left." "Damn, okay, listen to me very carefully. Do not, under any circumstances, sign anything Olivia gives you. Do you understand?" "Nothing." "Patricia, you're scaring me." "Good, you should be scared. Margaret, what you described isn't a venue liability form. It's a quitclaim deed disguised as a wedding gift agreement. If you had signed that, you would have legally transferred ownership of your house and possibly other assets to Daniel and Olivia." My heart stopped. But she said Daniel already signed it. Then Daniel either didn't read it or he's in on it. "Margaret, I'm coming over right now. Don't talk to anyone until I get there." She hung up and I sat there, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Daniel couldn't be in on it. My son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved and supported his entire life. He wouldn't do this to me, would he? I called him. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the third try, he finally answered, but he sounded irritated. "Mom, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait? Did you sign a document this morning? Something about the wedding venue?" There was a pause. A long pause that told me everything I needed to know. "Olivia talked to you," he said flatly. "Daniel, that document wasn't about a venue. It was about transferring my property. Mom, it's complicated. Look, can we talk about this later? I really am in the middle of something." "No, we can't talk about it later." "Daniel, did you know what was in that document?" Another pause. "Mom, you don't understand the financial pressure we're under. The wedding, the house we want to buy, Olivia's student loans. We need help, and you have assets you're not even using. The house is too big for you anyway, and..." I hung up, my son. My only child. He had just admitted he was trying to steal my home. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The room was spinning, and I thought I might be sick. When Patricia arrived 20 minutes later, she found me sitting on the kitchen floor, crying. She sat down next to me, put her arm around me, and let me cry until I had no tears left. "Tell me everything," she finally said. "From the beginning. Everything about Olivia." So I did. I told her about how Olivia had seemed so perfect, so loving, so attentive. About the Sunday dinners and the tea times and the sunflowers on Thomas's birthday. About how she'd made me feel needed and loved after Thomas died. Patricia listened to all of it, her expression growing darker with each detail. "Margaret," she said when I finished, "I think you've been the victim of a very sophisticated con. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, probably from the moment Olivia met Daniel. But why? Why me? I'm not rich. You're a widow living alone in a house worth at least $600,000 in today's market. You have life insurance money from Thomas. You have savings. You have a pension. To someone like Olivia, you're the perfect target." But she loved me. I saw it. I felt it. Patricia took my hands. "What you saw was someone who is very good at manipulation. Someone who studied you, learned your vulnerabilities, and exploited them. The grief over Thomas, the distance from Daniel, your loneliness. She found every weak spot and pressed on it. And Daniel? How could he? People do terrible things when they're desperate, or when they're under the influence of someone they love. I'm guessing Olivia has been working on Daniel too, convincing him that this is somehow okay, somehow justified. I felt like my entire life was crumbling around me. Every happy moment over the past 8 months had been a lie. Every laugh, every hug, every shared confidence. All of it had been manipulation, leading to this moment when I was supposed to sign away everything I had. What do? I asked Patricia. First, we document everything. Every interaction with Olivia, every gift, every conversation. Then we contact a lawyer. A good one. Because, Margaret, this isn't just about stopping them from getting your house. This is fraud. This is elder financial abuse. And it's illegal. Elder financial abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just a mother who'd been betrayed by her son and future daughter-in-law. I was a victim. A statistic. One of those sad stories you hear on the news and think, how could someone let that happen to them? I don't want to press charges against my own son, I whispered. You might not have a choice, Patricia said gently. Not if we want to stop this. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I'd lost. Not just in that day, but over the past 2 years. I'd lost Thomas. I'd lost my relationship with Daniel. And now I'd lost my belief that love, real love, still existed in this world. But what I didn't know was that the truth was even worse than I imagined. Patricia introduced me to a lawyer named Marcus Thompson. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes and a reputation for taking on difficult cases involving elder abuse. We met in his office the next day. I brought everything I had, texts from Olivia, emails, photos from our times together. Patricia came with me for moral support. Marcus listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Mrs. Hayes, I've been doing this kind of work for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of cases like yours. The pattern is always the same. The perpetrator identifies a vulnerable target, usually someone who's recently widowed or divorced. They build trust slowly, making themselves indispensable. And then, when the time is right, they make their move. So this has happened to other people? More often than you'd think. The FBI estimates that financial exploitation of the elderly costs victims about $3 billion annually. And those are just the reported cases. Most victims never report because they're embarrassed or because the perpetrator is a family member. $3 billion. I was just one more number in that statistic. What do we need to do? Patricia asked. First, I need you to sign some papers authorizing me to investigate this on your behalf. Then, I'm going to hire a private investigator. We need to find out everything about Olivia Martinez. Who she really is, what her history is, whether she's done this before. You think she's done this before? People this good at manipulation don't just wake up one day and decide to con someone. This is learned behavior, practiced and perfected. He slid some papers across the desk to me. I need to warn you, Mrs. Hayes. What we might find won't be pleasant, and there's a possibility that your son is more involved in this than you want to believe. My hand hesitated over the papers. If I do this, if I go through with this investigation, there's no going back, is there? My relationship with Daniel is already destroyed, Marcus said gently. He was willing to make you homeless for his own financial gain. Whether you pursue this legally or not, that's not something you come back from. I signed the papers. Over the next week, Marcus's private investigator, a woman named Sarah Reeves, dug into Olivia's past. What she found made me physically ill. Olivia Martinez wasn't even her real name. Her real name was Olivia Brennan. She'd changed it legally 4 years ago. Before meeting Daniel, she'd been engaged to a man named Richard Westbrook, a 58-year-old widower in Seattle. They'd dated for 6 months, gotten engaged, and 2 weeks before their wedding, Richard's daughter discovered that Olivia had convinced Richard to add her name to his bank accounts and the title of his house. When the daughter confronted Olivia, she disappeared. Simply packed up and left town. Richard never pressed charges because he was too embarrassed. Before Richard, there was Michael Chen in San Francisco, another widower. She'd dated him for 4 months before his son caught her trying to forge Michael's signature on a power of attorney document. Again, no charges. Too much shame. Too much embarrassment. There were others. Sarah found 3 more cases over the past 6 years. All widowers or widows, all similar patterns. Build trust, isolate the victim from other family members, then make a play for their assets. How did she find them? I asked Sarah when she presented her findings. Grief support groups, church groups, community centers. Anywhere lonely, vulnerable people gather. She'd identify her targets, research them, and then engineer a meeting that seemed coincidental. How did she meet Daniel? At a charity event, according to him. But I pulled the guest list for that event. Olivia wasn't on it. She crashed it. And I'm willing to bet she already knew Daniel would be there, already knew he was the son of a recent widow. I felt sick. Every moment of the past 8 months had been a calculated move in a con game. Nothing had been real. Nothing. There's something else, Sarah said, hesitating. Tell me. Your son. I've been looking into his finances. He's in serious debt, Mrs. Hayes. Credit cards, personal loans, a car loan he can't afford. He's drowning, has been for over a year, right around the time he met Olivia. You think she knew about his financial problems? I think she sought him out because of his financial problems. Desperate people are easy to manipulate. She probably convinced him that taking your assets was the only way to save himself. I thought about Daniel, my son who'd always struggled with money, who'd always been just a little too eager to impress people, a little too worried about status and appearances. Olivia had found his weakness and exploited it. Marcus called me that evening. Mrs. Hayes, we have enough to go to the police. What Olivia has done constitutes fraud, attempted theft, and elder financial abuse. These are serious crimes. She could face years in prison. And Daniel, if we can prove he knew what he was doing, he'd be charged as an accomplice. But Margaret, I think there's a chance he was being manipulated too. Not that it excuses what he did, but the law might view him differently than Olivia. I had a choice to make. Go to the police and potentially send my only child to prison. Or do nothing and let Olivia walk away to do this to someone else. Before you decide, Marcus continued, there's something you should know. I did some more digging. Olivia is currently living with Daniel. In his apartment, and according to my sources, she's been pressuring him to ask you to let them move in with you temporarily after the wedding. She wants to move into my house? It's the next phase of the con. Get into the house, establish residence, then use legal mechanisms to force you out. Probably claim you're not mentally competent to live alone. By the time you could fight it in court, they'd have legal possession of the property. The full scope of what had almost happened hit me. I'd been 2 signatures away from losing everything. My home, my independence, my future. I want to confront her, I told Marcus. I strongly advise against that. I don't care. I need to look her in the eye. I need her to know that I know, Marcus sighed. If you're going to do this, at least let me be there. And let me bring a recording device. I agreed. But what I didn't know was that the confrontation would reveal something even more shocking than everything. I'd already learned. I called Olivia and asked her to come over. She was reluctant at first, but when I told her I was ready to discuss the document again, she agreed immediately. She arrived the next afternoon, and I could see the calculation in her eyes even as she smiled at me. Margaret, I'm so glad you called. I think there was just a misunderstanding the other day. Come in, I said. We need to talk. She followed me into the living room where Marcus was already seated on the couch. The recording device was hidden in a vase on the mantel. Olivia's smile faltered when she saw Marcus. Who's this? This is Marcus Thompson. He's my attorney. Her face went pale. Attorney? Margaret, why would you need an attorney? Sit down, Olivia. Or should I say Olivia Brennan? She froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? You don't know about Richard Westbrook in Seattle? Or Michael Chen in San Francisco? Or the 3 other men you've conned over the past 6 years? Olivia's eyes darted to the door, calculating her escape route. You need to leave, she said, but her voice was shaking. No, I said, and I was surprised by how strong my own voice sounded. You need to sit down and you need to explain to me why you did this. Why you picked my son? Why you pretended to love me when all you wanted was my house? For a moment, I thought she would run. But then something in her expression shifted. The warm, loving mask fell away completely, and what remained was someone cold and hard and completely without empathy. Fine, she said, sitting down and crossing her arms. You want to know why? Because it's easy. You people are so desperate for love, so desperate to matter, that you'll believe anything. You were pathetic, Margaret, crying about your dead husband, clinging to every scrap of attention I gave you. It was almost too easy. Her words cut deep, but I'd expected them. Marcus had warned me that when confronted, people like Olivia often tried to hurt their victims as much as possible. Why Daniel? I asked. Why not? He was perfect. Desperate for money, desperate for someone to make him feel special. All I had to do was convince him that his mean old mother was sitting on a fortune while he struggled. That you didn't really need that big house. That you'd be better off in a nice retirement community where people could take care of you. He believed that? People believe what they want to believe. Daniel wanted to believe he deserved your money more than you did. It wasn't hard to convince him. And the document? She laughed. That was the beautiful part. It was completely legal. If you'd signed it, there would have been nothing you could do. The house would have been ours, and you'd have 90 days to get out. We'd probably have given you some money, let you rent a small apartment somewhere. We're not monsters, Marcus leaned forward. Ms. Brennan, you do realize you're confessing to attempted fraud and elder financial abuse? She sneered at him. I didn't do anything illegal. I gave Margaret a document to sign. She chose not to sign it. End of story. What about Richard Westbrook? Or Michael Chen? Or the others? I don't know what you're talking about. We have documentation of at least 5 other cases where you used the same pattern. Build trust, isolate the victim, then attempt to gain control of their assets. Olivia stood up. I'm done here. Margaret, I'm sorry you chose to ruin your relationship with your son over this. Daniel and I are still getting married, with or without your blessing. And honestly, we don't need you. We never did. She walked to the door, then turned back one more time. You know what the saddest part is? You could have been happy. You could have had us in your life, had grandchildren someday. But you chose suspicion over love. You chose to believe some lawyer over your own family. I hope you enjoy your big empty house, Margaret. I hope it keeps you warm at night. And then she was gone. I sat there shaking, feeling like I'd been physically attacked. Marcus turned off the recording device. We got it all, he said. Every word. This, combined with the documentation Sarah gathered, is enough to file charges. Will she go to prison? Probably not. First offense that we can prove. And she didn't actually succeed in stealing anything from you. But she'll face consequences. And more importantly, she won't be able to do this to anyone else. I nodded, but I felt numb, empty. What about Daniel? I asked quietly. Marcus hesitated. That's up to you. We have evidence he was involved, but we can also argue he was manipulated by Olivia. If you want to protect him... I don't know what I want, I said honestly. He's my son, but he was willing to make me homeless. You don't have to decide right now. But I did have to decide, because the wedding was in 2 weeks, and Daniel still didn't know that I knew everything. That night, Daniel called me. Mom, Olivia told me you had your lawyer there today. What's going on? Why are you doing this? I took a deep breath. Daniel, we need to talk. In person. Tomorrow. Mom, tomorrow. Just you. Not Olivia. I hung up before he could argue. Daniel showed up at my house the next morning. He looked terrible. Exhausted, stressed, defensive before I'd even said a word. Mom, whatever Olivia did, whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. She loves you. We both do. Sit down, Daniel. I don't want to sit down. I want you to stop this insanity. You're destroying our family over a misunderstanding. Sit down. Something in my tone made him obey. He sank into the chair across from me, his jaw tight with anger. I slid a folder across the table to him. The folder Sarah had compiled with all her findings about Olivia. Read it, I said. Mom, I don't need to read. Read it, Daniel. All of it, and then we'll talk. He opened the folder reluctantly, but as he read, I watched his expression change. Confusion, disbelief, and slowly, horrible realization. When he finished, he looked up at me, his face pale. This can't be real. It's all documented. Every case, every victim. She's done this before, Daniel, and she was doing it to us. But she loves me. Does she? Or does she love what she thought she could get from you? From me. He was shaking now, and I could see the moment when everything clicked into place for him. All the little things that hadn't quite made sense. All the ways Olivia had isolated him from his friends, had pressured him about money, had convinced him that I was the problem. The document, he whispered. She told me it was a wedding gift arrangement. That you wanted to give us the house as a gift but needed it in writing for tax purposes. And you believed her. She had it all planned out. She showed me the venue contract, said we needed your signature on this too. I didn't read it carefully. I was so stressed about money, and she kept saying you had plenty, that you didn't need such a big house, that you'd be happier in a smaller place. He put his head in his hands. Oh God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to reach across the table and hold him. He was my son, my baby, but he'd also been willing to take my home. Daniel, I need to understand something. At what point did you stop seeing me as your mother and start seeing me as a solution to your financial problems? I didn't. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He was crying now, great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. I was drowning, Mom. I had so much debt. I lost my job last year and didn't tell you because I was embarrassed. I was working 3 part-time jobs just to make minimum payments on my credit cards. And then I met Olivia, and she was so understanding, so supportive. She said we'd figure it out together. And figuring it out together meant stealing from your mother. She made it sound reasonable. She said you were lonely, that the house was too big for you, that you'd actually be happier in a retirement community. She showed me brochures for these beautiful places. She made it sound like we were helping you. By forcing me out of my home? By taking my late husband's life insurance money? By leaving me with nothing? I didn't see it that way. I swear, Mom, I didn't see it that way. She twisted everything until it seemed like the right thing to do. I believed him, not because I wanted to, but because I knew my son. He was weak, he was desperate, but he wasn't evil. Olivia had found his weakness and exploited it. What are you going to do? He asked quietly. I've already filed a police report against Olivia. She'll face charges for attempted fraud and elder abuse. And me? I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw the little boy who used to curl up in my lap during thunderstorms. The teenager who brought me flowers on Mother's Day. The young man who held my hand at his father's funeral. But I also saw the man who had been willing to betray me. I don't know yet, I said honestly. The lawyer says I can include you in the charges or leave you out of it. But Daniel, even if I don't press charges, our relationship is never going to be the same. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you've done? You weren't just trying to take my house. You were trying to take my independence, my security, my future. You were willing to make your 64-year-old mother homeless so you could pay off your credit cards. I'll pay you back. Every penny. I'll get a better job. This isn't about money, Daniel. This is about trust. And you broke that. Completely. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. What about the wedding? He asked. Are you really going to marry her? After everything you know now? I don't know. I love her. Or I thought I did. Now I don't know what was real and what was manipulation. That's something you need to figure out. But Daniel, if you marry her, you're choosing her over me. You're choosing the woman who tried to steal everything from your mother. You need to be very clear about that. He stood up, moving toward the door like a man in a trance. I need time to think. You have 2 weeks until the wedding. Think fast. After he left, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the photos of our family. Thomas and me on our wedding day, Daniel as a baby, the 3 of us at the beach at Disneyland at his high school graduation. All these memories, all these years of love and sacrifice had led to this moment. My son choosing between me and a woman who had tried to destroy us both. I didn't know what he would choose. But I was about to find out. Because 3 days later, I received a text message that would change everything. It was from Daniel. Mom, I need to tell you something. Can you come to my apartment? Now, please. It's important. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This was it. His decision. When I arrived at Daniel's apartment, I found him sitting on his couch, surrounded by boxes. What's going on? I asked. I'm leaving, he said. Portland. This apartment, everything. I can't stay here anymore. Where are you going? I got a job offer in Denver. It's a fresh start. Away from all this. And Olivia? His face hardened. I confronted her. About everything. She denied it at first, but when I told her I'd read the investigator's report, she laughed. Mom, she actually laughed and said I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me. I'm sorry. Daniel? She said she only stayed with me this long because she thought she could still get to you through me. That once she realized you weren't going to sign anything, I became useless to her. He looked at me with eyes full of pain. She never loved me. It was all fake. Every moment. I sat down next to him and, despite everything, put my arm around him. I know what that feels like, I said softly. She did the same thing to me. How do you not hate me? He asked. I almost helped her destroy you. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. But Daniel, you're still my son. And I watched someone manipulate you the same way she manipulated me. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it helps me understand it. He leaned his head on my shoulder, just like he used to do when he was small. I'm going to pay you back. Not just money, but trust. It might take years, but I'm going to prove to you that I'm not that person. That weak, desperate person who almost betrayed his own mother. Good, I said, because that's exactly what you need to do. We sat there for a long time, not talking, just being together. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was the first step toward healing. What happened to Olivia? I asked eventually. She moved out 3 days ago. I don't know where she went. Your lawyer called me, said there's a warrant out for her arrest, but she's disappeared. She'll surface again, I said. People like her always do. And hopefully, next time, her victim will be less trusting than I was. Daniel pulled away and looked at me seriously. Mom, I need you to know something. Even in the worst of it, even when Olivia had me convinced that taking your house was somehow okay, there was a part of me that knew it was wrong. A part of me that sounded like Dad, telling me to stop. Your father would be devastated by what you almost did. I know. That's the worst part. I let him down. I let you down. I let myself down. So don't do it again, I said simply. That's all any of us can do. Learn from our mistakes and do better. 6 months have passed since the day Olivia walked out of my house with that document. She was arrested 2 months ago in Phoenix, trying to run the same scam on a 72-year-old widower named Robert. This time, his daughter caught on early, did a background check, and found the warrant out for her arrest. She's currently awaiting trial. My lawyer says she'll probably get 2 to 5 years, plus restitution to her other victims. Daniel is doing well in Denver. We talk every week, sometimes more. He's in therapy, working through his issues with money and self-worth. He sends me part of his paycheck every month, slowly paying back the money he owes me, even though I told him it wasn't necessary. It is necessary, he insists. For me. As for me, I'm learning to trust again. Slowly, carefully, but learning nonetheless. I've joined a support group for victims of financial elder abuse. I've met other people who've been through similar situations, and sharing our stories has helped heal the shame and isolation I felt. Patricia still comes over for tea on Tuesdays. We drink chamomile, talk about books, and never mention Olivia unless I bring her up first. I've also started volunteering at a senior center, teaching other elderly people how to spot financial scams and protect themselves. If my experience can help even one person avoid what I went through, then maybe some good can come from all this pain. The house is still mine. My sanctuary, my home, the place where Thomas, And I built our life together, and where his memory still lives in every room. And I realize now that Olivia was wrong. About one thing, the house doesn't keep me warm at night. The memories do. The knowledge that I stood up for myself does. The understanding that I'm stronger than anyone, including myself, ever gave me credit for. That's what keeps me warm. So if you're watching this, and you recognize yourself in my story, please listen carefully. Not everyone who shows you love is loving you. Not everyone who calls you family has your best interests at heart. And if someone asks you to sign something you don't understand, for God's sake, have a lawyer look at it first. Trust your instincts. They're usually right. And remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Even at 64 years old, I learned that lesson. Maybe you will too. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have pressed charges against your own son? Or would you have tried to protect him from the consequences? Let me know below. I read every comment. If you like the story, you can support me by giving a thumbs up so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.